On behalf of the Shahrawat family, it is with great pleasure I introduce Miss Nartana Premchandra, playwright, writer, and president of Dances of India. She has just published a piece in a current issue of Parabola, a prominent literary journal. And she is also Mrs. Asha Prem's daughter. We are so happy to have her here as our Master of Ceremonies for this evening's program. Please join me in welcoming Nartana Prem.
Thank you so much, Sonia. I am so delighted to be here. So tonight, let's go on a voyage. We'll travel not so much through time, but through the endless wide spaces and interconnected pathways of the human imagination. Let's go to a forest in South India, where the great sage Bharata sits meditating. After exploring his inner world of eternal prayer, he opens his eyes to find himself in the bewitching outer world of his existence in time. He notices the leaves of a tamarind tree sway so gently in a breeze so soft, you wouldn't even notice it if you weren't aware. He hears a sudden flutter of wings of a sapphire blue kingfisher soaring off into the silvery soft skies above him. If he listens intently, he can even hear a single ripple in the lake and a sudden plash of a joyful fish. Sage Bharata stands and spies the sun through the canopy of leaves around him. He has observed the sun, of course, every day of his life. He knows through his deep intuition that it is the earth that swirls around the sun and the moon that spins around the earth. A stray cloud suddenly appears and droplets of rain twirl down to the ground. Sage Bharata wipes his forehead, looks at gems of water sliding rhythmically off his palm, and in a flash of insight, he understands. The entire universe dances, from a tiny ant which marches in formation with the others in its colony, to the great planet of karma, Saturn, which rotates around the sun with astonishing regularity. Every particle of the universe moves in harmony with every other particle. And he realizes that even as he sits in meditation, he is not completely still. An eyelid may flutter. His heart beats. Water courses through his body constantly, as does blood. Intelligence moves. Awareness dances. He sits down. He takes a palm leaf in his hand. He takes a quill in his other hand and begins visualizing a human being dancing. Don't we carry the universe within ourselves after all? The ideas flow to him of geometric body positions, which I can't do completely in this, footwork of mathematic complexity, ideas that can be demonstrated through the nimble fingers of one's hand, and most importantly, the expressions of one's face, one's eyes, even one's eyebrows. And thus, a body dances. This art form created by Sage Bharata, a wise man who lived in a world of myth, was codified in an ancient text called the Natya Shastra. Shastra means text, and Natya means dance theater. In India, while dance can certainly be done for entertainment, as I'm sure you all will have seen at least snatches of Bollywood numbers, it actually symbolizes the universe itself. If you look over there, on the very top of the display over there, you will see the god Shiva in his pose as Nataraja, king of dance. I will talk about Shiva a little bit later. Dance is also a vehicle to tell stories, for stories are the breath, the blood, and the very being of India. When you see an ancient story told through dance, as you're going to see Neha do this evening. She's going to tell you many stories through dance. You will see the story come alive in the present moment through the movements of her body, through the gestures of her hands, the expressions of her face and eyes. And believe me, she has a lot of expressions. You're going to have a lot to watch, actually, because you're going to have to watch her feet beat out the rhythm and her manifold expressions and her hands as well. She will be performing what sage Bharata created all those years ago, or perhaps just yesterday. As we all know, time is a mutable, capricious, relative kind of creature. An art form called Bharata Natyam. It is one of the most prevalent dance styles in India. Tonight, as we journey through the world of classical Indian dance, while we watch Neha's arangetram, arangetram means rising to the stage, we'll learn a little bit about the history of Bharata Natyam, a little bit about Hinduism, and a little bit about the gods, goddesses, and demons that populate the great epics of the Indian imagination. So our first dance this evening will be Pushpanjali. Pushpanjali means a salutation with flowers. Flowers not just ornament an event, they sanctify it. They welcome the audience, and they welcome the holy beings all around us. And you will see the beginning of the geometric framework in which a Bharatanatyam dancer performs. It's a lovely start to our performance tonight. Now we will see Vatapi. Vatapi is about the deity Ganesha, the elephant-headed deity, whom I believe needs no introduction. You will see Neha describe his characteristics, such as his huge stomach that represents the universe, his long trunk in the shape of the syllable Om, the sound of creation. And you will see the movements of a ritual in a Hindu temple when we light an oil lamp and circle it in front of the deity. It's to remove all darkness and evil. And she rings the temple bell. You'll see that. And you'll also see her describe Ganesha residing in the Muladhara chakra, for those of you who do yoga, the root chakra from which the energy arises. I neglected to mention that Ganesha, any Ganesha piece is always done at the beginning of a show, because Ganesha is always worshipped at the beginning of any endeavor. If you go to a new school, if you're going to buy a new car, buy a new house, you worship Ganesha to remove all obstacles and to bless the occasion. I think Neha did a wonderful job of showing Ganesha blessing this occasion. Now we will proceed to a dance called Jatiswaram. This is a dance of pure rhythm and syllables of rhythm. So classical Indian music is a huge, fascinating subject, but just to give you a little intro to it, there are 7 basic syllables of classical Indian music: sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni. And the music originates in the sounds of nature. So it is said that sa originates with the cry of the peacock. Re, the sound made by a cow calling her calf. Ga, the bleat of the goat. Ma, the cry of the heron, of which I've seen many here while I've been in Florida. Pa, the note of the cuckoo or kukila bird in India, very common in India. Da, the neighing of the horse. And ni, the trumpeting of the elephant. So Indian music has its roots in the natural world, and it's made of ragas, which are melodies. The word raga means color. It's when you hear a piece of music, the sense of emotion that comes over you, that colors you. So the Jatiswaram is a play of raga and tala, different beats. And in classical Indian dance, we use a cycle of beats. I just thought I'd tell them to you. You might find it fun to listen for them when you watch Neha dance. The first one, Tishra, is 3 cycles. Takita, Chatursha, 4, Takadimi, Khanda, 5, Taka, Takita, Mishra, 7, Taka, taka demi takita. And Sankirna 9, taka demi taka takita. So these are the beats to which Neha dances. These are the complex syllables to which she moves her feet. And yes, so now we will see Jatiswaram. And now we will proceed to a Varnam. A Varnam is the most complex piece of a dancer's repertoire because it requires her to alternate between passages of intense rhythm and passages of intense storytelling. And that takes a lot of energy to switch from back and forth. This particular Varnam is about Rama. Rama is the hero of the epic the Ramayana. The Ramayana may not be very well known in the Western world as yet, but it is known all throughout Asia. There's a writer named A.K. Ramanujan, who is a writer and folklorist, and he said, just a list of the languages in which the Rama story is found makes one gasp. Annamese, Balinese, Bengali, Cambodia, Chinese, Gujarati, Javanese, Kannada, Kashmiri, Khotanese, Laotian, Malaysian, Marathi, Oriya, Prakrit, Sanskrit, Santali, Sinhalese, Tamil, Telugu, Thai, Tibetan, to say nothing of Western languages. It is well known throughout Asia because it's such a compelling story, and it goes like this. The story actually starts with a king named Ravana, who's become so full of himself that, well, he thinks really only about himself. And if you see his portrayal, he's got 10 heads. And they symbolize not just his power, but that intense focus on himself. And, he's not happy simply ruling every kingdom he can think of. He wants to make sure he'll never be defeated. So he prays to Brahma, the creator deity, and he says, before he prays, while he prays, I should say, he does a lot of penance, because in all the Indian stories, you can't just pray. You have to do penance for years, for decades, for millennia to achieve the goals that you wish. So Ravana does penance for a long, long time. Finally, Brahma says, okay, you've done a good job. What do you want? And Ravana says, I want to be immortal. And Brahma says, sorry, human beings can't be immortal. So Ravana says, well, in that case, let me only be able to be vanquished by a human, not by a god or anything, but only by a human. And Brahma says, so be it. Ravana goes off very, very happy because, who can vanquish him? I mean, no human can possibly vanquish him. He has so much power. He's also very handsome, by the way. He's handsome, he's intelligent, he's well-learned. So, but as happens when people get a lot of power, they wreak havoc upon the world. So havoc was wreaked upon the world. And then the god Vishnu decided, look, I have to do something about this. So he comes down as Rama, Prince Rama, a human being. But Rama cannot know that he is divine. He cannot even have a hint of his divine origin. He's got to be human. He has to be a human being. That is the only way he can learn all the lessons he needs to learn about Dharma. Dharma, which is very, very important in Hinduism. Dharma is the idea that it is what you do that supports others, whether it's your family, it's your company, it's your country, it's the world. It's the idea that you are interwoven with the lives and destinies of other people, and it's what you do to support them. So Rama has lessons to learn of Dharma in his life, and he's human, so he must also suffer. And this is one of the great lessons of the Ramayana, is the idea that you have to persevere, and suffering is part of the journey. So to tell you the story, what Neha is going to portray for you. Vishnu is born as Rama, as I said, to King Dasharatha in the ancient walled city of Ayodhya. For our purposes, we'll just get to know Rama and his brother Lakshmana. So after they're about, they've just passed childhood, a great sage, Vishwamitra, comes to Ayodhya and he tells the king, I'm busy doing a yajna. So this is fire in Hinduism. A yajna is a sacrifice. And in Indian myth, sages always did this sacrifice to remove evil from the world, to bring good to the world for other reasons. He said, I'm trying to do the sacrifice and these demons keep bothering me and I just can't get rid of them. I need your sons, Rama and Lakshmana, to defeat them. So King Dasharatha says, all right, go. So the two young men go to the forest. And in the forest, the sages are busy saying Sanskrit mantras, and the fires are going, and Rama and Lakshmana vanquish the demons left and right. So sage Vishwamitra is very, very happy. And when they finish that, they accomplish that goal, he gives them some magical weapons that he knows they're going to need because he knows that Rama is Vishnu. I mean, he knows. So he says, let's go home now, go back to Ayodhya, but on the way, let us stop at the kingdom of Mithila. In Mithila, there is a beautiful princess named Sita. Sita is having her Swayamvara. And I want you to go and compete in the Swayamvara. What is a Swayamvara? These were glorious functions that princesses in ancient India had, where princes from all over the land would come and compete in feats of strength to win the hand of a princess. And there's some stories where, like a princess, sometimes a princess will require her suitors to compete in intellectual debate in order to win her hand. In this case, in Sita Swayamvara, the man who would win her hand had to break Shiva's bow. Shiva, the mighty deity of the universe, well, he has a tremendous bow. And the right man for her has to lift Shiva's bow because normal human beings can't even lift it. So it was quite comical. She kind of watches them in the hall, she's kind of controlling her laughter because some of these princes, they're like, oh, I can do it, I'm so strong. And they try to lift the bow and they can't. They just can't. And finally, even Ravana comes, by the way. Ravana tries, because Ravana is besotted with Sita, which is the cause of his downfall, as we'll soon learn. But he's besotted with Sita, and he tries to lift the bow, and even he can't. But there's Rama. Rama arrives. Rama is handsome as the sun, and he's kind of dusky, dark blue skinned. And he comes and he lifts the bow without any effort, and just to kind of finish off his accomplishment with a flourish, he breaks it. So Sita is so happy. Swayamvara means I choose, and Sita chooses Rama. So they are married, and Lakshmana actually marries Sita's sister, Urmila, and there's a lovely story about that. If I get a chance, I'll tell you. Anyway, so they go back to the ancient walled city of Ayodhya. And, Sita's happy, everyone's happy because Rama's going to be king. But then what happens? Through a wicked twist of fate, Rama is exiled to the forest for 14 years. At first he tells Sita, no, you stay home. You don't have to come with me. Sita says, who do you think I am? I'm your wife. And not only that, I am the goddess of the, well, she doesn't say I'm the goddess of the earth, but she says she's of the earth, and she is of the earth. So Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita go off into the forest. One day, Sita spies this golden deer in the forest, a golden deer. Oh, it's so beautiful. She tells Rama and Lakshmana, I want that deer. Please get it for me. And, Rama and Lakshmana are a bit suspicious. They're like, I don't know about this deer. It's too perfect. It's too beautiful. Something's wrong with it. She says, no, please get me that deer. So Rama says, I'll go get it for her. So he goes into the forest, and then deep in the forest, he spies the deer. And then he realizes that this deer is actually a demon. And so he shoots the deer, and as the deer is dying, the demon in it comes out and calls in Rama's voice, Sita. Sita hears this. She said, Lakshmana, Rama's in trouble. Go get him, please go get him. Lakshmana says, something is wrong here. This is not right. She says, no, please go get him. So he says, okay, but first, he draws a circle around her. He says, do not leave the circle. Within the circle, you are protected. If you leave it, you are not. She says, okay, I won't leave. And then he goes off to get Rama. While Lakshmana has gone, a holy man, a mendicant, arrives. And, and he sees Sita and asks for money. Well, Sita has never refused a holy man in her life. She steps out of the circle into her hut, gets a gold coin, steps back in the circle, steps out of the circle to give it to the holy man, and he takes off his disguise, and he's Ravana, the 10-headed demon king. He picks up Sita, and he takes her into the skies because he wants to take her to Lanka, his kingdom. And as he takes her, her beautiful jewelry and her hair ornaments, they all just fall off. And she cries, Rama, and then there's a great eagle in the forest named Jatayu. And Jatayu sees this, and this brave eagle, and he goes and he fights Ravana, but he's grievously wounded. And Ravana takes her to Lanka. Rama and Lakshmana come back to the forest, and they see Sita's gone in this wounded eagle, and Jatayu tells him everything, and Rama collapses in grief. Rama is distraught at the loss of his wife. And it is said Lakshmana cradles Rama's head in his lap. So the great hero of the Ramayana is totally devastated. So Lakshmana gives him strength. And they say, Lakshmana says, we're going to find him, don't worry. On the journey, they meet a monkey spirit named Hanuman. Many of you might know of Hanuman, who's devoted to Rama. And Hanuman says, I will help you, Rama, along with my monkey armies. So they all go to Lanka. And in the meantime, Sita is in her garden, the Ashoka garden. Ashoka trees are beautiful trees, and it is said their flowers remove all sorrow. So Sita is in this garden, and she weeps for Rama. I mean, she is longing for him. And at the end of the Varnam, you'll see Neha portray that longing for Rama. And Ravana wants to be with Sita, but Sita will not go to him, and he does not take her by force. He does not want that. He wants her to come to him, and she will not. She's absolutely faithful to Rama. So eventually, Rama and Lakshmana and the wonderful army of monkeys and bears, they come to Lanka. Actually, before they come to Lanka, Hanuman comes first. And he comes to Sita, and Sita first doesn't even trust him. She's like, who are you? And then Hanuman shows Sita Rama's ring. And then Sita knows, okay, he is sent from Rama. So then Rama's armies come and they vanquish Ravana. And I wish I could say that it ends happily ever after, but this is an epic. And epics do not end happily ever after. But that is the end of the main portion of the Ramayana tale. And I do hear Neha, she is ready. So please enjoy these enthralling stories through her dance in the Varnam. So there you go. Was that not dynamic or what? Give another round of applause. She did an amazing job between the complex rhythmic patterns and all the expression. She told the entire story I told you. She told the entire story through the dance. It's amazing. So thank you so much. And we will now break for a 20-minute intermission. There are refreshments in the lobby for your enjoyment. Thank you. Welcome back. Now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Shiva statue I told you about earlier, because Neha is going to perform a Shiva Tandava for you. So Shiva is one of the main deities of Hinduism, and he is the king of dance. And even though the statue is small, in Hinduism, the idea is that God is in that statue, sure, but God is also beyond everything we can imagine. So you might not be able to see the details of the statue, but no worries, I'm going to show you. So in his right hand, he holds the drum of creation that beats out the rhythms of creation. In his left hand, fire that destroys. His hair is wild in the frenzy of his dance. He's enclosed in a ring of fire. It's the circle of eternal creation and destruction. His right hand is in the gesture Abhaya Hasta, which means in the chaos of the world around us, do not fear. And this is a great thing to remember, I think, in the world today. He stands upon a demon symbolizing ignorance. So I love the fact that Shiva, as Nataraja, king of dance, dances upon ignorance. The French sculptor Auguste Rodin, he said about the Nataraja statue, "What many people cannot see, the unknown depths, the core of life. There is grace and elegance, but beyond grace, there is perfection." And I just had to add this. One of my favorite writers, Aldous Huxley of Brave New World fame, but I love his perennial philosophy. And he wrote, "We don't have anything that approaches the symbolism of this work of art, which is both cosmic and psychological." So this is Shiva. And in the dance that Neha is going to perform for you, imagine the Himalayas at twilight, the brilliant sun in ribbons of orange and gold and lavender and indigo and pink. And there is Shiva dancing upon Mount Kailasa, his home. And he is lost in his own joy. He loses himself in his rapture. Ganesha, the deity we met earlier, is playing the cymbals. The mridangam, the South Indian drum, is being played. And everyone is in awe at Shiva's dance. Now we shall move from the deity Shiva to the deity Krishna. Krishna, many of you might know Krishna as the great sage in the Bhagavad Gita, the one who gives the lessons on life and Dharma and detachment. But Krishna has another aspect as the lover. And in the 9th century in India, the great bhakti movement was started. Bhakti means devotion. So this was begun in reaction to rigid caste rules or rigid rituals which had lost all meaning. And there was a longing for devotion. So the bhakti movement began at this time. And in the 16th century, there's a princess named Meera. And Meera's she was from Rajasthan, and her husband and father-in-law were all killed in a battle. And legend has it that afterwards her in-laws didn't want anything to do with her anymore because she was so devoted to Krishna. She was otherworldly. She was a saint. Indeed, she's a saint. And there are many poems she's written and others have written about her longing for Krishna. And in this dance, Neha portrays Meera saying, how she wishes she could be a fish swimming in a pond near his feet so she could touch his feet. She wishes she could be a bird in the forest to sing sweetly to him. She wishes she could be a pearl in a necklace he's wearing to be close to him. And lastly, and most importantly, this is Neha's own choreography. To graduate from Dances of India, you must choreograph a piece yourself. So please enjoy this dance about Meera. Don't you love her? Don't you love her look of longing at the end? I love that when I saw it in rehearsal yesterday. Now we are going to have Neha's best friend, Sahi, who is a student with Dances of India, actually, in St. Louis, and whom I've known since she was a very little girl. So Sahi is going to come and talk about her friendship with Neha. So we've spent a lot of time with the gods, right? How about spending some time with a goddess? The goddesses in India, to make it simple, there is a goddess Parvati, who is the goddess of the earth. The goddess Saraswati, who represents intelligence, language, alacrity of thought, originality of thought. And it's through her that we find meaning from the earth. So there's a subtle difference there between Saraswati and Parvati. And Lakshmi, if you take Hinduism 101, you'll probably see Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth. But I think that does a great disservice to the goddess. Historically, she was associated with the fertility and the abundance of the earth. Lakshmi is what makes everything fine. She is the beautiful flowering trees I see all around me here. She represents all that is beautiful and fine and refined in nature, in humanity. So if you have, for example, 2 shirts, that's all you own, well, you wear them with dignity and elegance and grace, and that is Lakshmi. So now, Neha is going to perform a piece called Bhagyada Lakshmi, which is a traditional song which describes the dancer saying, "Oh, come to me, Lakshmi, with your delicate feet ornamented with anklets. Come into my house, bring your rays of sunshine, bring a rain of gold, and bring rich buttermilk. When milk is churned and rich buttermilk emerges, bring that." And she is venerated on Fridays. Friday is considered an auspicious day to worship Lakshmi, and she also symbolizes the richness of ghee and butter, all that makes food so delicious and living so good. Excuse me, I'm wearing my mask backstage. Forgot to take it off. I think Neha really brings the grace and beauty of Lakshmi alive in that dance. I would now like to bring Asha Prem, the Artistic Director of Dances of India in St. Louis, to the stage. She's also my mom. Neha?
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and so I never dreamt that I'll be doing Neha's arangetram. I'm very happy I've done it, and I hope Neha will continue dance, because this is just the beginning, it's not the end. Dance, that's what it is. Many students, unfortunately, leave after finishing arangetram, but I would prefer they continue as long as they can. Thank you very much.
Just wanted to give you
Small token of thank you from us.
Now we come, I'm a little bit sad. We're coming towards the close of the arangetram. But before we end it, I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about the people who kept this tradition of dance alive. And these women were the Devadasis. These were like the servants of God. These were women who belonged to the temple and who danced in the temple. At the close of the 9th century in South India, there were 274 temples. Every temple would have wandering saints and musicians come to the temple to worship. So there would be music in every temple, and wherever there was music, there would be dance. So this is how important dance was. There's a Chinese traveler of the 10th century who visited the great temple in South India, Thiruvar, of the King Rajaraja of the Chola Empire. And this Chinese traveler said there were 3,000 dancing girls every day, 24 hours. This is how important dance has been. And these dancers, they too would do an arangetram. Hundreds of years ago, they would do an arangetram similar to what Neha is doing, maybe not in a nice air-conditioned auditorium, but they would do it in a very similar way with the teacher and close friends and family. So that's what we have experienced this evening. Oh, one more thing I can't forget. A king would often give a Devadasi, a dancer who completed an arangetram well, 108 gold coins. So maybe Sanjeev can come up, Neha's dad can come up with 108 gold coins for Neha. So we are now going to do the Tilana. Tilana is a dance of musical syllables and rhythms and melodies. It's a joyous dance that concludes the performance. There is a short verse in this dance which honors the goddesses I spoke of earlier, Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Parvati. After that, Neha will perform a mangalam. A mangalam is just a very, very short piece that thanks the audience and the gods for gracing her performance with their presence. Thank you.